With the holiday season really already underway, travel becomes top of mind. And this year, with several recent shortages of commercial airline pilots, we're seeing a lot of impacts on air travel altogether. I'm joined now by Captain Matt Tuohy, director of JU's School of Aviation. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And by aviation student Savannah Panting. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
To our listeners, have you experienced delays due to the pilot shortage? Do you have concerns about safety or suggestions about how to remedy the problem? We want your calls. Call us at 549-2937. Email us at firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. Message us on Facebook and Instagram, or tag us on X at FCC On Air. Captain Tuohy, your decades at history at JU dates back for a number of years, decades in fact. Tell me a little bit about how you arrived and what it is that you do there.
Well, I arrived in 1971. I was one of the first NROTC scholarship students that started that program. After graduation, spent 27 years in the Navy, and then came back first, right after my first Navy job, was the director of the School of Aviation, and now I've been back again for about 9 years. So it's great to be back at my alma mater, and it's great to be working with the students.
Jacksonville University's aviation program just celebrated its 40th year.
40th anniversary, yes, ma'am.
Congrats. And so what makes it stand out compared to other flight schools?
Well, I mean, we're very similar to a lot of the bigger programs, but we're a bigger program at a smaller institution. So, we've got the same type of facilities. We've got the same type of airplanes as the famous big colleges and universities that have flight programs. But our students are much bigger fish in a much smaller pond, which we find is the individual attention they get, the ability to know more people, to interact at a university level really pays dividends.
Savannah, what drew you to aviation, and what stage are you at right now in your education?
So I actually just graduated with my undergrad in aviation management, and I do my flight training up in Anchorage, Alaska. So I'm about 20 hours away from my commercial pilot's license at the moment. And I initially got into aviation because of my father. He was a C-130 pilot for the Alaska National Guard. And he was the one who initially brought me into the world of aviation. So he has his A&P, so we would work on planes together. And when I was finally tall enough, I was 12 years old, he flew me up in the Pitts Special, which is a biplane that performs aerobatic maneuvers. And I fell in love with doing loops, barrel rolls, and pulling G's where your face feels like it's about to peel off. So that's how I initially got into it, and I fell in love with it.
So your father did stunt pilot as well as commercial pilot?
On the side, he did have aerobatics training in the Air Force, or Air National Guard, and he has a Pitts Special S2 model. So yeah.
I have been up in one of those planes myself, and I recall being rather terrified. How did that appeal to you? What was it about it that drew you in?
For me, it was an adrenaline rush, and I fell in love. I'm an adrenaline junkie. I love doing just basically anything that gets my heart rate going. And for me, it was like my own personal roller coaster that you can manipulate, and I wanted to do something along those lines. So.
All right, and so if you're my future pilot on a commercial airline, I'm hoping you're not going to want to be like doing a roller coaster, but is that ultimately the trajectory that you're looking towards? Is that what you want to do?
So yes, I initially wanted to go into the military, but my eyesight was a disqualifying factor. But now my dream is to later on fly for FedEx, and hopefully one day fly with my dad, and maybe do one of those trips with him. So that's my goal in the long run.
So he's still flying?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So JU had the largest freshman class in the history of the program.
We did. We brought in a little over 100 students this past fall, which brings our student population in the aviation program to almost 300. We're about 290 now. About 240 of which are professional pilot students, and the other 60 are aviation management students. Everyone knows about the pilot shortage, but there's shortage in all levels of the aviation industry, and the opportunities for our students are just absolutely unprecedented.
Who do you appeal to primarily? What kind of student profile do you have at JU?
Well, I tell people the freshmen that we bring in these days are a lot more focused and know what they want to do much better than I did 50 years ago. But most of them want to be airline pilots. They've had a dream of flying, usually, at least from middle school, many of them from high school. But the majority now we're starting to see have been introduced to the aviation bug, if you will, even in grammar school. And they want to come in. We offer a little bit of a unique opportunity. The School of Aviation is housed in the Davis College of Business and Technology. So our degrees are business degrees with flight training added to that.
So, what is the situation right now in terms of the pilot shortage? How does JU feed the need, and what is the current situation when it comes to shortages?
Well, I mean, there was a pilot shortage before COVID, and due to the circumstances, the airlines, in an effort to stay alive, if you will, allowed a number of people to retire early. And so that basically took a pilot shortage and made it even worse when all of a sudden the world opened back up and that sort of thing. Perfect example, our students will get all their ratings at JU, all the way up through flight instructor. Then they'll instruct for about a year or so until they get 1,000 flight hours, and then they can move to a regional airline. Now, in the olden days, 10, 12 years ago, starting salaries in regional airlines were about $25,000. They're they're a little more than 3 times that now. And right now, if as long as you've got your hours and you're ready to go, and a regional airline will probably hire you, and you get to decide which one you want to work for, which is much different than it was in the past.
How do you get those hours? What is it that you're doing, to get yours in place, and where do you fly?
Yeah, so I am currently getting my commercial pilot's license in Anchorage, Alaska for during the summer times and whenever I have a 2-month break for winter term. Basically, I need 250 hours to be a commercial pilot, so I can fly 135 operations, or essentially I can get paid once I'm completed through that and I get my CFI. I can instruct kids who want to learn how to fly, so I can be a certified flight instructor. You can gain those hours through doing that, or you can fly Part 135 operations, which enable you to do charters or whatever mission a certain company needs you to fly.
Hmm. And one of the solutions to the pilot shortage that I've seen bandied about is the idea of maybe reducing the amount of flight hours required for someone to become a commercial pilot. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a way to become a commercial pilot is there's a couple of ways. As Savannah just described, her path as an aviation management major, doing the flight training on her own, requires 250 hours to become a commercial pilot. Our pilot students get taught under a different paragraph in the federal aviation regulations, and because of the rigor of our program under Part 141, they get their commercial at about 110, 120 hours. So they're ready to become a flight instructor upon graduation and go from there. The problem with reducing the amount of flight hours required to be able to go to an airline is you're not going to have any flight instructors. At this point, they're all going to get pulled to an airline, and you're going to have a flight instructor shortage like we saw back before the pandemic, and the species can't propagate itself. That every point in the food chain, if you will, is critical. And flight instructors, you need them in order to continue to bring people up through. So, there's a big push now to get people there sooner. However, you get dinosaurs like me that think they might learn a little something during that 1,000 hours that they need to get there that will make them better commercial pilots.
What about the idea of using flight simulators instead of flight hours to, in a plane to get there?
Well, the airlines do that now. The airlines, the first time, first officer for a major airline is flying the airplane, there's people in the back. But those simulators are wildly expensive, multi-million-dollar simulators. We have a regional jet simulator in our facility at JU that is not certified like it is for an airplane, but it's amazing how much you can learn in a simulation environment that, then translates to the airplane. So the airlines are going to be able to use simulators in lieu of airplanes. I think other operations are going to use simulators to augment the airplanes and the people's training.
There was obviously a big report the New York Times did about air traffic controller shortages. Is there anything that this program does to help alleviate that shortage as well?
In fact, we do. One of our tracks in our aviation management degree that Savannah is getting, or has gotten already, is an air traffic control track. We're part of the FAA's Collegiate Training Initiative program, which, upon completion, our students are put in a different hiring pool to be an air traffic controller. So in the past, and it's a small program at JU, obviously. We're hoping to expand it, but I think we've had 6 graduates in the last year, and 3 of them got hired as air traffic controllers, which is not a bad batting average.
Well, we appreciate you guys being in today to talk about the aviation shortage and what JU is doing to help alleviate it. I'm Captain Matt Tuohy, Director of JU School of Aviation, and aviation student Savannah Panting. Thanks so much for being here.
No worries.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for
for
having
having us, and appreciate you allowing us to tell our story.